Hey everyone, it's Daniel with Petal Pickers, and today I'm taking over for Lisa again for Ask a Flower Farmer, live here on the Gardener's Workshop Farms Instagram. So thanks for joining today. I'm going to be answering a lot of questions that y'all have submitted to me through my Instagram page, or if you would like to ask me a question on the live, go to the bottom of the screen and there's a little bubble with a question mark in there. Tap on that, type in your question, and once I get through my short list of questions here, I will be happy to start answering your questions. A little bit about me. My name's Daniel Schavey. I started Petal Pickers Flower Co. in 2018. We have an 8-acre farm. We only grow cut flowers here, so no vegetables, and I grow a little bit of everything. So we have perennials, annuals, bulbs, and woody shrubs. So we grow all kinds of stuff from about March until the end of October. And we are located in Zone 8A in South Carolina, and we grow 8 acres of beautiful cut flowers. We sell to Florist. We sell a little bit to our wholesalers. We have a retail store here in Greenville, South Carolina, and we also sell to event designers as well. So I think I've given more background information on our farm from previous lives here on the Gardener's Workshop Farm for Ask a Flower Farmer. So if you want more info, go back there and check them out. They have lots of good info in them. I'm going to start off real quick because last time I went over. I'm going to try to keep this to around 30 minutes. And I'm going to start off with some questions that I've already received over at the Petal Pickers Instagram. So my first one is from Dana Mashburn, and she asked, when's to transplant her dahlias to a better location? So Dana, if I were you, I would leave them where they are right now. We're getting over halfway through the dahlia growing season, so you may as well just leave them and then dig them up after your first frost comes through in the end of fall. And you can store your tubers inside if you're in an area where your ground freezes, or you can cover and mulch them to give your dahlia tubers added protection. If you're in growing zone 7 or warmer, I believe you can overwinter your dahlias. So look into that, but that's what I would do. Leave them where they are, and you can just dig them up and replant them next year in a better location. So my second question was from R. Sizemore KY, and I didn't write down the question. I actually just wrote down the answers. So I think the question was something along, what can you plant now to bloom at Mother's Day? I remember it now. Or what can you plant this fall that's going to bloom at Mother's Day next spring? So I have a whole list here, and I'm going to go through them real quick. We plant in the fall anemones, butterfly ranunculus, dianthus, that's the Sweet William variety, poppies, agrostemma, buplurum, peonies, campanula, cress, saponaria, statice, sunflowers, and veronica. All of those items I looked up to week 17 or 18 last year, this past spring, which was Mother's Day. And I had everything I just listed blooming the week of Mother's Day. So it totally depends on where you live in the country. Sunflowers for us was a stretch, and I actually learned a trick here from Lisa at the Gardener's Workshop Farm about starting sunflower seeds before our last frost dates and then planting them out in the field with row cover, and that helped us to have sunflowers. The first ones that were blooming were the week of Mother's Day, so that's pretty awesome to have those then, because during Mother's Day you can sell any flower that's blooming on your farm. Okay, next question. What flowers are you planting now for a fall harvest? So we have pretty much finished planting for anything on our farm that's going to bloom in fall. So our first frost date is going to be usually the first week of November, but because the number of daylight hours starts to lessen, we don't get as many things blooming about towards the end of October. And for us at our farm, we just cut all of our sales off at Halloween. So October 31st, even if I haven't had a frost yet, I could still have dahlias blooming out in the field. If I wanted to plant mums, I could have heirloom mums blooming in our fields, kale, would be something that would continue to be able to be harvested into November. And this question was from at Slatton Meadows, but I have all those items listed. There's certain flowers, so we're not planting anymore because we've run out of time. For us to plant, there's not enough time left in our season for the flowers to actually bloom. If you wanted to have mums in fall, you usually want to get those planted in the ground by July. We planted amaranth and marigolds and our last round of zinnias the first week of August, so that's already passed, but I hope that helps answer your question. Next question, at Uniquely Created by Cindy. Do y'all sell the tubers and bulbs that are grown at your farm? So yes, we have a fall bulb sale and we also have a dahlia tuber sale. And if you'd like more information on that, head over to our website, petalpickers.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. And as soon as I have all the sale dates scheduled, and I will notify you from a newsletter. So sign up for our newsletter on our website. I'm actually waiting right now to still receive our bulbs, and in the horticulture industry right now, there's just a shortage because there's so much demand for so many things. So just to save me a little bit of trouble this year, I'm not going to list out our fall bulb sales until I know exactly what's going to show up on our farm. So stay tuned for that. We sell anemones, ranunculus, peony bare roots, dahlia tubers, and tulip bulbs. So there's probably something else I can't think of at the moment, but definitely sign up for our newsletter, and thanks for asking. Next question is from Aaron to go. How many limelight hydrangeas do you have on your farm, and who are the buyers for them? So we have a retail store, so we do sell some limelight hydrangeas through there. And then also our wedding and event florists are usually who buy those up. I planted my first year here on the farm 40 limelight hydrangeas in a row. And then ever since then, the deer come through and eat them down to nubs. So they are not protected, and deer love hydrangeas. So that's something to keep in mind. I have since built a fence around our growing fields, and I've planted little lime hydrangeas, but I think I only have 8 or 10 shrubs of that. And so you really don't need that many. I would start with 10 to 20. And then, especially just starting off as a flower farmer, you aren't going to need more than that. And then if you decide you do need more as your sales increase, go ahead and start planting them. If you buy a shrub like that, like a limelight hydrangea in a 3-gallon size, it's only going to take a couple years before you can start cutting off of it. So you don't have to wait too long for that. The next question's at Barefoot Mama 39. What are you planting now? And so right now we are currently starting our seeds for our spring flowers, and we have finished planting on our farm for things that will bloom this fall. We're just going to ride out the end of the season with primarily all of our dahlias. So we grow over 10,000 dahlias here at Petal Pickers, and that's going to carry us through the end of our season. We do have stuff still blooming in our fields, but as we get into October, those crops are going to finish up, and we'll just be left at the end with dahlias. But we are starting our seeds for spring, and I'm going to show you our grow room before I get off of this live to give you a better sense of what seeds we're starting for next spring. Next question is from Lap Magaw. What flowers do you recommend for drying? So I just wrote a short list here, but we dry here on our farm hydrangeas, statice, amobium, strawflower, sweet Annie, eucalyptus, gumfrena, yarrow, and celosia. And we really don't dry that much. So I'm growing, and then we sell like 80 to 90% of all of our product fresh. So whatever is left out in the field, we'll usually cut and dry it and then use that later in fall or through the winter. But we don't have a program here to specifically grow flowers to dry them. It's usually just the leftovers. But a tip for you, if you are drying your flowers, you want to cut them still at the right harvest stage and then dry them fresh. What you don't want to do is leave the flowers in your cooler for a week or wait till they have started turning brown out in the field and they've been rained on too much to harvest them. You want to harvest them, if your plan is to dry your cut flowers, it's fresh at the perfect harvest stage, like you were selling them fresh to a florist, but instead you're going to hang them up and dry them. Okay, next question from Laura Hutto. Do you fertilize through drip every day? And these questions were related to our dahlias. How often would you fertilize for the home gardener? And then what NPK ratio for the different stages of growth? I'm going to try to get through this really quick. We do not fertilize every day through our drip system. So drip irrigation is how we water our dahlias here on our farm. And we have a dosatron, which allows us to inject fertilizer into our irrigation system. We do it probably about every 2 weeks or once a month. And honestly, I don't have a regimented schedule that I follow for that. I kind of just have a sense, if it's been really hot and we've been in the 90s in full sun, I feel like the dahlias probably need a dose of fertilizer. If you're doing it in your home garden, you could fertilize with like a backpack sprayer or a pump up sprayer, mix some seaweed or kelp or fish emulsion that's going to have a little bit of nitrogen to help green up your plants, and maybe apply that once a week by foliar feeding your dahlias. Also, when I prepare the soil here on the farm, or if you're growing in raised beds as a home gardener, just mix in some organic fertilizer at the beginning of the season, and ultimately that should be enough to carry your dahlia plants through. But if you're trying to get the biggest flowers and the best looking plants, it is important to feed and fertilize your dahlia plants every couple weeks, and they'll really start to show off. You asked me what NPK ratio for the different stages of growth that we use. So if you look at a bag of fertilizer, it's going to have 3 numbers on it. The first one's for nitrogen. That's going to grow your leaves and stems. The second one is phosphorus, and that's going to grow your flowers. And then your last one is potassium. That's going to help grow the roots or the tubers for your dahlias below the soil. I generally, if you're just general advice, use something that's across the board about the same numbers for the very first part of the season while your dahlia plants are growing, but before you see any blooms on them. And then once your dahlias start to naturally bloom, you want to lower your nitrogen. So you're going to choose a different fertilizer that has a lower nitrogen number in it, but a higher phosphorus and potassium number. And that's going to help give you more flowers towards the end of your dahlia season, and it's also going to help give a little extra nutrients for your tubers development underground. I hope that helps. Next question from Bloom Flower Garden. What is your post-harvest steps for dahlias? So when we're out in the field harvesting our dahlias, we take a bucket and we use a holding solution from Crisol, and that just has a little bit of sugar to keep the plants nice and fresh, and it has a germicide in there as well. So that's going to keep your water clean so that your dahlia stems do not get clogged. We have never ever cut our dahlias into boiling water. And honestly, even if I didn't use a holding solution, I find the best thing for our dahlias is that we harvest them in the morning, and then we place them in our cooler and make sure that they're there in the cooler at around 38 degrees overnight. And that coldness just seems to toughen up the dahlia blooms and just makes the stems a little more rigid and firm for when we sell to our florist. So if you don't have a cooler to do that, obviously the main goal would be to keep the water clean. So if you're at home, you may just want to make sure you have fresh, clean water and add a drop of bleach to the water, or a chlorine tablet that's made for flower harvest, and that's going to be your best bet. Also, we harvest our dahlias at the correct harvest stage, so you don't want to leave your flowers on the plant past their harvest stage. You want to get them when the flower is about 75% open, and that's going to give you the best life on your dahlias. The next question at Crooked Letter Roots: how to navigate preparing early spring beds and disrupting your soil just before planting. So that is a great question. Right now on our farm, I'm starting to think about preparing our rows in our field for next spring planting. So during the winter, that is our wet season here on the farm. That's when we get all the cold rains, and sometimes it may just seem like it's always raining and the ground's always soaked. We cannot get our tillers or tractors out in that field to disturb the soil during winter unless we just have an unusual dry spell. So we always want to prep our beds in the fall so that when we're ready to plant in, whether it's January, February, March, April, or even May, that we have space already allocated and the beds are already prepared to put our plants in. Right now, we're still selling full force. Fall is definitely a busy time for us, so my fields are still full of flowers. But as we're cutting the sunflowers, as we're cutting the amaranth, we're going to start mowing those crops down, and we are going to till in the soil just to start breaking down all that material from the previous crops. And then probably in about 4 weeks after that material is broken down, I'm going to till it a second time, and we'll take our bed shapers over that area and go ahead and form our beds. We have a bed layer that lays down our drip tape irrigation and our BioTello film on top. And so after those are all done, if I know I'm not planting flowers in there until spring, then I'm going to lay a tarp over the top of that, a silage tarp, and that is going to keep everything prepared and ready to go until spring. Like if we're planting our last round of cool season annuals around Valentine's Day, we'll just remove the tarp and the beds are ready to go. So I hope that helps. The next question from Garden Life Production: do you disbud your field-grown dahlias? And if so, what is the quickest way? We absolutely do not disbud any of our dahlias. That would be if you're on a smaller scale than us, or if you're at a home gardener. And if you take the side buds off of a dahlia stem, you're going to have your largest buds going to be in the center of your stem, but it has these little side offshoots. If you take those off right when you start to see them form, it's going to allow the plant to put all of its energy into growing a bigger bloom for your center bud that you're going to leave on the plant. And so I think that is wonderful, and it's a great way to get the biggest flowers that you can out of your dahlias. But for us, it's not practical at all. We don't disbud any of our dahlias, and we still get nice, beautiful blooms. So if you're really into growing flowers, I think that would be something fun to do with your dahlia plants. And the quickest way to do that, which was the other part of the question, is just to learn to get really fast at it. I would say practice makes perfect with that. So next question is, and last one, at Mountain Mama Lodging: I'm a teacher and have a greenhouse at school. What seeds can I plant now? So I'm going to show you that in a minute, but right now you can plant cool hardy annuals to start from seed. We are just starting into that season. So for the next 2 months, we will, at our farm, be planting our cool hardy annual seeds. I started some just a few days ago, and I'm going to show that to you in our grow room. But I started some snapdragons. You could start status. There's all kinds of things. I recommend purchasing cool flowers from Lisa here at the Gardener's Workshop Farm. If you head over to the Gardener's Workshop Farm's website, you can order cool flowers. I actually heard her say that it's sold out right now, but she has all kinds of resources on her website, and so you'll be able to find that information of what you can start now over at the Gardener's Workshop Farm's website. Okay, let me see if y'all have any questions on here, and then I'll take you inside and show you around. So, from Union Mills Flowers: any tips you can share on your process on soil blocking Canterbury bells and delphinium? So what we're actually going to do is we are going to use plug trays like 128 size plug trays for our delphinium. And that, I think I'm growing the belladonnas in those, but actually I've started the Guardian White in soil blocks. I've never done this before, but I randomly planted that a couple days ago. And I've never grown Canterbury Bells in soil blocks. I always order plugs for those. I think that's Campanula. I always order plugs for those. But for delphinium, I did a quick Google search before I sowed my seeds the other day. And delphinium needs to germinate at a decently cold temperature. So what I did, I made my soil blocks and I put the delphinium seeds, one per soil block. I took that tray and I stuck it in my walk-in cooler, which is at 38 degrees. And I made sure that the seeds were wet. So I went ahead and watered in my soil block tray and then kept it in my cooler. And it said online on a Google search, so who knows, but it said that they should start to germinate within the week. So that's going to be really interesting, and this is the first time I've tried that. If you don't have a walk-in cooler, obviously you could probably try the same thing with a fridge. But then once I take it out of the cooler, I'm going to put it on a heating mat in my grow room until 50% of those plants have germinated, and then we'll just stick it under lights in our grow room to allow it to continue growing. So great question. All right, let's get to another one from Joanne. My dahlias have lots of leaves but little to no bud, and they are some from tubers, some as seeds, started in April. And I can't see the rest of your question. Oh, yes, I can. As early as April, what could be wrong? Thanks. All right, so I would make sure that your dahlias are getting at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. Dahlias like to be in full sun. And make sure that you give them a dose of fertilizer to see if that helps. I would start just with a general purpose, a 10-10-10 fertilizer for your dahlias if you're not already on a fertilizing schedule with them. And you know, the seeds, we don't grow any of our dahlias from seeds. We always order in tubers, or we take our own cuttings from tubers. But I have never had a dahlia plant not bloom. I would say maybe you just need to have a little bit more patience. I know I have some late blooming varieties of dahlias, and sometimes it's not until mid-October that those varieties typically send up a bloom. I think your problem may be, honestly, though, that you're not getting enough sunlight if you planted as early as April. I hope that helps. All right, from Pink Petal Co., what plugs do you plant and where do you purchase them? So we order plugs for stuff that we have found is hard for us to start as seeds. And that was, I used to order just a few plugs. I order poppies in plugs. I order all of our Lysianthus in plugs. I've ordered delphinium in plugs just because I've heard it can be hard to start from seed. Now that I have 6 years of growing under my belt and our business has increased, I have found that it is very beneficial and time-saving for me to just order as many plugs as I can get for what I'm wanting to grow out in the field. So this year I've ordered Snapdragon plugs, the Potomac Lavender and Potomac White, but I also ordered seeds of Madam Butterfly Ivory because that was out from the suppliers, from the plug suppliers. So I still do a mixture. We start tens, maybe 100,000 seeds in that grow room through the course of fall and winter. But I also have just really decided that it's going to save me a lot of time, and it's still worth the price to order in plugs. So I hope that helps answer that. I order them from Ball. You can contact Dave Dowling at Ball Horticulture, and he can help get you set up with ordering plugs. If you're familiar with WebTrack through Ball, you can just order straight from your computer, never even have to talk to anybody. I also order from Farmer Bailey plugs, so if you're looking for a smaller quantity, he would be a good place to start. And his online ordering system at Farmer Bailey plugs is very, very easy to navigate. I think that's all. Those are my two sources for plugs. Ball Horticulture is a broker, so they're ordering from a lot of different greenhouses that produce plugs. If you're ordering in a very large volume amount, you may want to go direct to the source with those greenhouses. Okay. Next question. What zone are you, and when do you start taking dahlia cuttings? We're zone 8A. We're in South Carolina, and if I really want to take a lot of dahlia cuttings, I'm going to start waking the tubers up right after New Year's in January. But I will have plants that are over a foot tall before our last frost date. So what that has ended up being for me in the past is I'll set those plants outside during the day and then have to bring them all in at night, because we typically do get close to freezing during our winters. Even if we don't go below freezing, we could have a frost, and that will damage your dahlia plants or cuttings. So you want to make sure they're always kept above freezing and frost free. So if a normal person who's not obsessed with taking thousands and thousands of dahlia cuttings, I would wait and start waking your dahlia tubers up in February or March. And that's going to give you plenty of time to take cuttings, get your cuttings rooted, and then still plant them out in the field and have beautiful flowers come fall. Dahlia cuttings also produce a flower quicker. And so we found that out this year. Our tubers that we planted in the end of June and July still are not blooming yet, although they're about there. But our cuttings are what we are harvesting all our flowers off of right now. Okay, next question. I've just transplanted my cool flowers. Oh, it said the response couldn't be shared. Let's see. I've just transplanted my cool flowers. First frost is October 4th. Should I pinch the transplants this fall or wait until spring? I would think that depends on how big your transplants were when you planted them. If they look really healthy and you did a great job at growing your transplants, and there's room for you to take a cutting and not distress the plant, I would say go ahead and pinch them now while they can still have nice weather to recover and get rooted in the ground. But if you think that you planted them out a little early and the transplants were still a little small, then maybe wait and see what happens. I really am bad about pinching a lot of our stuff out in the field. And so what I found for me is easier is just to plant more cool hardy annuals closer together, because I know I'm not going to individually go and pinch all the thousands of cool annuals that we plant in our field. So do what works best for you, but there's really not a right way to do it. Some flowers like snapdragons, if you pinch them, you're going to get more flower stems, but they are going to be skinnier, and they're probably going to end up being skinnier than what your typical retail florist is used to ordering in. So that's something that I found, and we used to pinch a lot of our snapdragons, or all of them, and now we only pinch, if we do end up pinching them, we only pinch half of our row, so that we can still have the really nice, thick, solid stem snapdragons with the big, long heads of flowers. And then we'll use the ones that we do pinch that give us more snapdragons. We'll use those in our retail bouquets that we can just add in and help fluff out our bouquets in spring. Okay, next question. What are your favorite heat-tolerant dahlias? So we grow over 100 varieties of dahlias here on our farm. And yes, a lot of them that I see all over Instagram that are beautiful, coming from the Pacific Northwest or up north where it's nice and cool at night. A lot of those don't perform as well here in the heat in South Carolina. I haven't done research as far as finding a list of dahlias that do best in the South, and I'm just trying to figure that out through trial and error. What we have decided to do on our farm is primarily just not even try to have dahlias blooming in June, July, or August, but just focus on growing dahlias to take us through the end of the season in September, October, because that's when our nights start to cool off just a little bit. Right now our evening temps are still around 70 degrees, and that just doesn't give the dahlia plants enough time to really recuperate from our 90+ degree days that we have. Our dahlias are still beautiful, but I'll tell you right now, our blooms are a little bit smaller and they don't open all the way up as beautifully as what I'm seeing come out of like Illinois or the Pacific Northwest, but we're doing our best in the South. You can shade your dahlias and that will help to give them some shade protection, but that's a big investment with shade cloth and stuff, and we just haven't jumped to do that yet. The varieties that we grow, I'll just give you a couple of my favorites, but for a white ball dahlia, Blizzard hands down is just the most productive one that we have. I also like Rycroft Jan, is a smaller ball shaped dahlia. Peaches and Cream is like our number 1 seller, and Cafe au Laits are always great to sell to florists for wedding work. And we try to focus more on the dahlias that are very productive, so that give us more stems per plant. And that's also going to be like your Cornell Bronze or any of them in that Cornell family. Cornell is a red, Cornell Bronze is the orange. Jomanda may come from that, I can't remember, but Caitlin's Joy is the pink sport of Cornell. So any of those are very, very productive, and they all do well here for me at our farm in the South. All right, we plant in raised beds when I can grow direct in the ground. I'm not sure about that. I'm sorry, I don't know where the question is there. From Crooked Letter Roots, can 6-inch spacing using a flower support grid be followed for most all cut flowers, or are there some that should absolutely be spaced farther apart? So the answer is yes to both of those questions. There definitely are some cut flowers that need to be spaced further apart. I also generally plant everything at 6-inch spacing. So I hear a lot of people say zinnias need to be at a 9-inch spacing. I plant all of our zinnias at 6-inch, and I just know they're going to get powdery mildew, but I harvest them for about 3 to 4 weeks, and then we cut them down and we have our next succession of zinnias blooming right behind them, so they'll be nice and fresh. We plant our sunflowers at 6-inch spacing. Something you would not want to plant that close is like a peony root. So we plant all of our peonies a minimum of 18 inches to 2 feet apart from one another. And those are just a bigger root, bigger plant. So they definitely need more spacing. I hope that makes sense. There's definitely stuff you want to space out. But what I've generally found is that you can put most of your annuals at a 6-inch spacing and they do fine. All right, next question. Let's see. Okay, we're already at 30 minutes. I'm going to try to answer a few, and then I will, you can re-ask me your question if I did not answer it when I post this live on the Gardeners Workshop Farms feed, and then I'll be happy to go back and respond to your questions there, because I don't think I'm going to make it through all of them. Okay, I have this question again. Why plant in raised beds instead of direct in the ground? So if you are growing flowers on land that doesn't drain very well, or if there's many reasons, but raised beds provide great drainage for the roots of your plants. And so that's one reason. If you really raise your beds up high enough, it can help you from having to bend over all the way and to cut your flowers. Also, it's very easy to amend your soil in a raised bed. You can, and you're not having to use like heavy equipment to till the ground. If you're adding bag soil into a raised bed and compost and everything to make it very nice, the soil is just going to be a lot lighter and fluffier, and it's going to help you after you're done growing a crop. It's a lot easier to pull the plants out when the soil is nice and soft like that. Whereas out in our field, I'm having to use our tractor, a commercial tiller, and that's just a lot of heavy machinery going into doing that. So I hope that helps answer that question. Okay, what's your favorite fall chore? Um, I was walking through the field. I just went on vacation a couple weeks ago, and I got back last week, and I was like overwhelmed by all the stuff that has to happen in the next 8 weeks here on the farm. But we always get stuff done a lot quicker than in our mind. It feels like we're going to be able to when we're overwhelmed. But I don't know if I have a favorite chore, but my favorite time of the whole season is at the end of fall when all the crops summer crops are gone and they've been tilled under. We have nice fluffy soil, nice formed, clean raised beds, and then we start planting our transplants out in the row, and I can stand at the top of the field and everything looks perfect for like 2 months. And so that's the time of year where I'm least anxious, and I can just really enjoy looking out there in the fields. But maybe planting ranunculus. If I had a chore, we're going to start planting ours. We plant our ranunculus in October, again in November, again in December, and our last round in January. And that's just something that I've really grown to love doing. That's probably my favorite crop. So just planting the little corms in the ground is a lot of fun for me. All right. When do you plant your pre-cooled tulips, and does a warmer temperature affect the stem length? So yes, we do not get enough cooling here in Zone 8A of South Carolina to properly chill our tulip bulbs. And so what we do is we ask our wholesalers where we're importing our tulip bulbs from to pre-cool them. So I've grown both 9C pre-chilled tulip bulbs and also 5C pre-chilled tulip bulbs, but we do get cold, and they both did great. So that gave our tulip bulbs enough cooling to have nice long stems. If your tulip bulbs do not get enough cooling during your winter, they are not going to produce a long enough stem for you to harvest, and that's when you're going to be really sad because you invested a lot of money in tulip bulbs and then they're just blooming a couple inches tall out of the ground. Ask me how I know. I've totally done that before. I think every flower farmer has. It's just part of learning how to become a flower farmer and growing tulips. But hopefully that helped save you some headaches along the way. We're actually growing 40,000 tulip bulbs this year, so I'm a little nervous about that. But we did 22,000 last year and we sold every one, so hopefully we have the same record next year with selling tulip bulbs. For us, it's just become the kickoff to our spring season, and tulip bulbs or tulip flowers are able to ship well. So we ship retail bouquets during the week, during our whole season across the country, and we found that tulips have been a great thing for us to add to our program in doing that, and that people are so hungry for flowers in early spring. And that's why we're choosing to grow so many. Okay, when do you plant ornamental kale? Assuming it's too late to plant in plugs in zone 7. I would say if you have the plugs, plant them now and see what happens. You're probably going to get them around Thanksgiving, which is still a great time to sell your ornamental kale. When we have grown it in the past, we generally try to start our seeds in our grow room, I think in early July, maybe sometime in July, I think is when we start our kale seeds. So maybe now is the right time to be planting it out in the ground. I haven't grown it for a couple years, but every time I've trialed kale, I just start the seeds in July and it's ended up doing great out in the fields, or if you have a high tunnel, it does great there as well too. So I don't think it's absolutely too late for you. Okay, I've answered those. Okay, we're done with questions. Yay, I actually got through all those. Again, if you have a question or you think of something else to ask me, feel free that once I post this live, type it in the comments and I'll go back there and answer some more questions in the next day or two. But I'm taking you inside our workshop real quick. I know I'm already over time. And last week I went a couple weeks ago, I went really far over, but I'm going to show you our grow room because we've started some seeds. Okay, so I have a setup very much like Lisa at the Gardener's Workshop Farm. We have our heat mats and we soil block here at Petal Pickers, and we have started some snapdragons. And this morning I zoomed in. We just started these 2 or 3 days ago, and I'm not going to be able to find it now looking at it, but I actually saw some of the seeds germinating this morning, and I just thought that was so cool. But y'all can kind of get the idea. Snapdragons are really small seeds, so it's a tiny root coming out. This one is Dusty Miller, so we have that started as well. And there's some more snapdragons down there. And these are the snapdragons I started last night, actually. So they're on a heat mat. Unfortunately for us right now, this room is above the temperature that our heat mats are set on. So our heat mats are only cutting on at night. And I generally like for this room to cool down. I've purchased an air conditioner before to help cool this room down, but it barely does anything. And then what I find is it sucks all the humidity out of the air, and then I have troubles with my seeds germinating. So really what you want to start your cool season hardy annual seeds is you want the air temperature to be cool, like in the 60s would be perfect, and then to have your trays on a heat mat where the heat mat set around 70 to 74 degrees, and that's going to be ideal temperatures for your seeds to start. So one thing that I like to use to help increase the humidity is you can get a pump up spray bottle just like this, and then we only water our trays once in the morning, but then we'll come through here before the employees leave and just add a little bit of moisture on top of the seeds with the spray bottle, and sometimes that will help seeds, especially like snapdragons, come out of their seed coat and you get a better germination rate. So that's what we've started in here. So today is our bouquet shipping day, so we're getting everything ready for that. And then we just finished making bouquets, and we're still putting together florist orders in here, but I'll show you some flowers that we have blooming. So see, our dahlias look great. They're not under shade cloth. It's been 90 all week here. And the trick for us that I learned from Dave Dowling about growing great dahlias in the heat of the summer is to make sure you irrigate and water them a lot. So when I increased my watering is when I started getting better dahlias here in South Carolina. Here's some Oklahoma zinnias, Benary's giant, that's salmon rose. We have our sedum that's blooming, and this is the willow eucalyptus. And I just think this is one of the prettiest eucalyptus, and it does not have a strong eucalyptus smell, and it's not sticky at all. But this grows great here in the south for us. We have some silver drop here, and I know a lot of people are having trouble getting eucalyptus. All right, I think y'all are still there. Sorry, I lost connection there. I was talking about the flowers that are blooming and that we've harvested from our fields in there, but let's see, now that you're back. Okay, we have some Hot Biscuits amaranth that's beautiful, lots of dahlias, celosias, and so everything's just got picked through while we made bouquets. But I'm gonna show you out back what we have. We have started getting in some of our perennials. So this is a Joe Pieweed, and I ordered this through Dave at Ball Horticulture. And so we're going to plant this out in our fields in the next couple weeks. We're just getting it acclimated. It got shipped to us in a box. So we're making sure it's well watered and ready to get planted in the ground in the next few weeks. And we still have a mess here of just stuff that's left over We have gumfrina that we grew in soil blocks that needs to get planted ASAP. It may be too late for that. But I also grew a ton of gumfrina, so we may not even plant that, y'all. I have 3 successions in the field, and the first one just started blooming. So I actually think I'm going to be good. And believe it or not, I may just toss these in the compost pile over there. But then this is another seed that we just started this week. This is Tweedia. So we grow this here on the farm. We grow it in white and light blue, and I save the seeds, and that is what I'm starting now. So because we're at the earliest part of our season for starting our Cool Hardy annual seeds, I'm taking this time when it's still a little warm to do some trial stuff. So basically, I really don't care if these seeds germinate or not, but I'm taking the opportunity because I have the space to put them on a heat mat out here and still have warm temperatures outside for them to germinate. So hopefully that trial works. Follow me at Instagram. I'll keep you up to date. This is another thing that I've never done before. So you can actually get with Dave at Ball Horticulture and order cuttings. So this is scoop scabiosa cuttings that just came in a box. There was no dirt or roots attached to these cuttings, and so they came in a box just like that, and we are going to root them here at the farm ourselves. So this is something new that I'm trialing. I just wanted to get a head start, and so I ordered cuttings direct from Ball Horticulture. And then our greenhouse, I'll let you peek in there, but that's a lot of summer annuals that just never got planted out in the field. So really this should be empty, except we have stuff that's just overgrown. And honestly, most of this is going to make its way into the compost. We just ran out of room in our field, and we ran out of time to get the stuff planted. So I'm showing you this so that you know it's totally fine to throw plants away. And it's always better to try to start more than what you need, so that you can fill up all your spaces in the field. Here we do have our electron dianthus. This is going to bloom next May for us on the farm. And so we started that seed in early July, and now we're just letting it grow into its plug trays until it's ready to transplant out in a couple weeks. All right, so I hope that was fun. Thank y'all for joining me here today. I love doing the takeovers with Lisa. And again, I'm gonna post this on their feed. If you have more questions for me, feel free to type them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. Again, we do ship retail bouquets of all the flowers that we grow here on our farm each week during our growing season. So if you ever want to send someone that you know or love or think they'd really appreciate our locally grown flowers here at the farm, we can ship those nationwide. You head over to petalpickers.com and you can check that out. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletters about our fall bulb sales, and we'll be sending out more information about that soon. So y'all have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Bye.